Good evening. We begin with breaking news and that phone call to discuss the prospect of peace in Ukraine between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin has just ended. There have been some early comments from Moscow, nothing yet from the American side. In a moment, we'll hear from our US correspondent James Matthews at the White House, but first to Moscow and correspondent Ivor Bennett. And Ivor, the first details of what was talked about coming from Russian news agencies.
That's right, Mark. Vladimir Putin took this call in Sochi, the Black Sea resort of Sochi, where he's just emerged and spoken to some Russian journalists and press agencies down there who are reporting some lines from him. The Russian president described the call as meaningful and frank. He said it was informative and helpful and that they spoke for more than 2 hours, so a very long time. But despite the length of the call, it seems like not much has actually changed, judging by these first remarks. It doesn't seem to have moved the dial closer towards a peace deal, or at least a ceasefire even, in Ukraine at all. Vladimir Putin, according to Russian media, said that he told Donald Trump that Russia is ready to work with Ukraine on a memorandum for future peace talks, which is basically a more formal way, it seems, of saying that, yes, Russia and Ukraine will continue to hold direct talks, which is what happened at the end of last week, following that face-to-face meeting in Istanbul. He also said a ceasefire with Ukraine is possible once agreements are reached. Again, that is pretty much the same as what Russia has been saying for the past 2 months since Donald Trump first asked for a 30-day ceasefire. It doesn't mean we're any closer to Russia actually agreeing to one. He's just restating Russia's insistence that a ceasefire can only be from Moscow if it's on its own terms, which is for Western military support to Ukraine to cease. And he says that the resumption of direct talks between Russia and Ukraine show that the parties are generally on the right path. That's, again, from Russia's perspective. I think Ukraine would beg to differ. They, of course, insist that Russia first agrees to a 30-day ceasefire. But again, it seems that we are no closer, despite this call lasting 2 hours, to that position than we were before the call. And I think European leaders and Ukraine will be very disappointed that that Donald Trump has not seemingly applied more pressure on Vladimir Putin. They had hoped that this would be the moment that Donald Trump would follow through on his threats to put pressure on Vladimir Putin and push him closer to a ceasefire. Ahead of the call, the US threatened, once again, reiterated its promise to impose sanctions if it thought Russia was dragging its feet in terms of peace talks and not being fully committed towards them. But there, according to the Russian readout, there was no talk of sanctions. And I think this line from the Russian president might alarm Ukraine's European allies. He said that Donald Trump noted that Russia favours a peaceful resolution of the crisis. I think European leaders and Ukraine would beg to differ on that. They, I think, would interpret this as once again Russia dragging its feet and once again swerving demands for a 30-day ceasefire and once again pushing back Donald Trump's demands for a swift end to the conflict.
Ivor, thank you very much indeed. Let's go live to the White House and our US correspondent James Matthews. And James, if that is all true, then President Trump has soon, at least, got a decision to make, because there are positive words from Vladimir Putin, but certainly no immediate ceasefire. The question is, are we any further ahead, really?
I don't think we are, Mark. I mean, we will get the US readout on all of this. The question is, how can this be spun by Donald Trump as anything other than a US president who has failed in negotiation, diplomacy and the stewardship of this conflict? Vladimir Putin, if he has not played Donald Trump and not humiliated him this far, then that readout that the Russians are giving us reinforce the notion that he is very much in control of events. And just looking at the diplomacy, actually as it's played out over the past 2 or 3 hours, just prior to this phone call, Mark, You look at J.D. Vance talking about America being prepared to walk away if it didn't get what it saw as a satisfactory solution. The U.S. press secretary saying that, in response to a question about funding foreign wars, this is all about America first. It's about American people and American taxpayers first. So that was the message going into this call, where Donald Trump was allegedly going to bring Vladimir Putin to heel. Putin would have heard that and thought, if I just sit tight, the Americans are going to walk away. Sure, there are threats about, how the economic opportunities wouldn't be what they are with America and so on. But with the Americans walking away, that leaves Ukraine exposed. Therefore, this war that I'm already winning, I can reinforce my advances. So that's the diplomacy, the American diplomacy of just the last few hours. But even beyond that, Mark, in the past few weeks and indeed months, Donald Trump, the key view, the Ukrainian view, would be that he has lent strongly towards Vladimir Putin. In the draft proposal put on the table, presented to both sides, that, retained Ukrainian territory in Russian hands and so on. Ukraine, allied European leaders have been concerned that they were being sold out by Donald Trump. They have been prepared to wait for him to implement the solution that he has long promised, because they need the United States. They're now staring down the barrel of this pivotal call, this make-or-break call that has taken them no further forward and places Ukraine in even greater jeopardy if that Russian readout is to be believed, because Russia would appear to be simply sitting tight and delaying this process, not implementing any step forward as progress, but merely sidestepping, sitting tight where they are in a position where Donald Trump actually hasn't laid a glove on them. For all the talk of carrot and stick, it's been very much carrot for Moscow, not the stick. And European leaders, they want pressure on Russia. That's why they were on the phone to Trump as recently as yesterday, reminding him of sanctions. Emmanuel Macron on X posted that there had to be an unconditional ceasefire. That was the measure of success for European leaders of this call. Anything less than that, they will see, and this is a view that will be reflected in Kyiv, they will see it as a failure on Trump's part.
James, thanks very much indeed.